Welcome to the podcast, Andrea. Thank you for joining me. I am so excited to talk to you because you are a seasoned certified business and life coach, and you're an Amazon best-selling author of She Thinks Big, the Entrepreneurial Woman's Guide to Moving Past the Messy Middle and into the Extraordinary.
It's a
My eyes
long
are failing
subtitle.
me today.
It's a long subtitle, but
No,
hey,
it's so true. We so often find ourselves in the messy middle, and I love it. And thank you for joining us today. I think you're going to have a lot of wisdom to share with us. So, welcome.
thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So, why don't you give listeners a little bit about your background and your
Sure.
mission in your coaching business?
Yeah. So this is how it all started, I will tell you. So I used to work for a company, big corporate entity where I was doing, my official title was like director of business development, but I was recruiting and hiring and training new business owners. So it was their model was like you had franchises, but you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I was recruiting these, we'll call it, for lack of a better word, new franchise owners.
Mm-hmm.
And 99% of them were women. I would say of that, a good 85% were moms. And a lot of them were either wanting to do this, number one, because they wanted to get out of some other type of gig they had, like corporate gig or whatever. They wanted something that they could own themselves and quote unquote, be more in charge of their own time. Or they were doing it as a side hustle. It really wasn't a side hustle. Like people were making multiple six figures. So I stayed there for 10 years and I was one of those people first. And then I took this role on and I stayed there for 10 years. And after 10 years, I had it and I was ready to move on. And in analyzing that, okay, number one, why was I ready to move on? I was ready to move on because what was going on was that being part of under that corporate umbrella, I really was being forced to think in one way. And it was really what I would now call small thinking. We had to do things this way. We had to follow these rules. Now there's always rules, but if you had any great, what I call now big thinking ideas of how you wanted to try something, do it differently, approach something from a different angle, you got the big no
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't vetted. They weren't sure if that would work. So there was a big no. So when I left, I think part of the reason I left was because although I didn't label it at this point, I was really tired of thinking small because a lot of these women, most of these women had great ideas and they wanted to approach things in kind of unique ways. And that wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I was done. So I left. But when I left, okay, what's next? And I hired my first ever coach at that point. I didn't really know what coaching was, but someone said, "You need a coach." And I was like, "Okay, I need a coach." So I hired a coach and she said to me, "Why did you stay there so long?" And I don't know. I think part of why I stayed there so long was because I felt like it fit into the mold of what I needed. I needed something flexible. I had little kids at the time. I wanted to run my own show, that kind of thing. Okay. But why did you stay when you were really doing that corporate recruiting, hiring, and training thing? And what I realized, the part I loved about it was when someone was a new business owner, they had been in it for a couple months or a year and they were profitable and things were going well. And they almost were going faster than they wanted. They couldn't keep up. And they started to feel like they were in that messy middle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to keep this going? A lot of times they started to feel guilty because they weren't spending enough time in their brains with their families, or guilty because they wanted to spend more time on their business, but they felt like they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I really loved coaching them out of that messy middle
Mm-hmm.
and showing them all the possibilities that
Mm-hmm.
were in front of them. And when I first started my business, I called myself a possibilities coach
Mm-hmm.
because that's really what I was doing. I was really helping people see opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
see what they could create,
Mm-hmm.
see how to make things go from what might seem impossible or too hard to, and my favorite phrase is simple, doable, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why I stayed. And that's where when I started my own business, where that came from, what it grew out of. Because
Mhm.
now I coach female entrepreneurs. I think I coach them in all stages of their business, but my sweet spot is really women who have an established, profitable business. They probably have a very small team, if any, if they haven't dabbled in that yet, but they now are wanting to kick it up a notch.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things getting in their way. Most likely, the biggest thing that's getting in their way is themselves.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's where I really love coaching. I've got a bunch of those women in my mastermind, and
Mhm.
they are wanting to hit seven figures. Some already have. They're in a wide variety of industries, and 99% of them have kids. So navigating both life and business, which is what we talk about a lot,
Mhm.
is really the meat of what goes on. So
Mhm.
that was probably a really long answer to your very short
No,
question.
I love that. And I think that coaches serve such an important role, especially when you're transitioning from that corporate environment, from that small thinking to holding that space for possibility, because so many we can't even imagine that in the
No.
corporate environment. You've just been so limited for so long.
Yes.
So I think that's so important. And I think it's important that people know coaches like that exist and people like that exist.
Yeah, like I was having a
Oh,
conversation
here.
this morning. Right. I was talking to a client or a prospective client this morning. Now she is going to be a client, but a prospective client, and she's never worked with a coach before. And
Mhm.
I said, listen, why do you want to engage in this? What about? I need more accountability. She had opened her business for 7 years,
Mhm.
but she's still a solopreneur. And I need more accountability. And I said, totally. I said, but here, I want you to think about these other things these intangibles. Yes, we want to increase her revenue. Yes, we probably want her to hire some team members. But really, what this is going to do also is hold space for you to
Mhm.
think about some things, because in the driving people to ballet and picking up someone else who's sick at school, we don't really have that. We don't create that space for ourselves.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the most amazing things. And the other piece that I think is amazing, and a person said this to me on Friday, I did a big live event on Friday, which was
Mhm.
super fun, around my book. It's called She Thinks Big Live. But one woman said to me, a while back, I've been working with her for a while back, you told me that you believed in me more than I believed in myself. And that really stuck with me. And I had to borrow that belief for a very long time
Mhm.
in order to keep myself going and get to this next level. So
Mhm.
I think someone holding belief for you, someone holding space for you, someone holding you accountable, those are all amazing benefits that you're not going to get from your family, even though
Mhm.
you might love your family, or even just a mentor. Mentors aren't necessarily pushing you, that you get in these coaching relationships.
So tell us, what are some of the fears, and I think you identify three main ones that hold us back as female entrepreneurs in particular from growing, from taking that leap or
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah. And this woman this morning was a perfect example. First
Mhm.
off, it's fear of the unknown.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We're all wired for that, by
Right.
the way.
Yeah. So we don't know what's actually, probably they all kind of fall under this, but fear of the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's be honest. We don't even know what's going to happen tonight. But somehow that fear in a business setting
Mhm.
holds us back, because we
Mhm.
start asking all of these what if questions. And
Mhm.
usually the what if questions, they end with, what if something goes wrong? What if I don't succeed? What if no one buys from me? Okay, so they're usually not the kind of what if questions that are, what if this actually works? What if I can't keep up with the demand? We don't go there. Our brain wants to go into its protective mode, which it should. That's its job. Our brain's job actually is to protect us, as a matter of fact. So it's doing its job,
Mhm.
but it's holding us back while it's doing its job.
Mhm.
So fear of the unknown and that desire to stay, I'll call it safe, to stay in the known, that's a big, huge fear. And it also goes into fear of change, right? So what if this works and I can't pick up someone at 4:30 from ballet? What's going to happen? Are they going to not take ballet? No, they're going to go to ballet and you're going to figure it out. Okay. That's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen. Okay. There's fear of risk too, because you're probably having to put more time in, money. So all these things are unknown, but I want you to give equal airtime to fear of success, which is also an unknown, but it could happen. Okay.
And I love that. We don't talk about that enough because
No.
it's one of the biggest fears that pops up. Like nobody anticipates it because you start a business to be successful.
But like,
No
why do we
idea.
go? Why do we fall? Like, where does that go? What happens?
Yeah.
So it's a confidence issue in a sense. Like you lose your confidence. You're not sure if you're going to have the wherewithal to handle things no matter what, whether
Trust
it works or it
yourself.
doesn't work. Okay. So that's fear of the unknown. That's the first big category. And I think the second big category, and I talk about this in the book and She Thinks Big, and I really elaborate on it. So if you want more info, go to Amazon, get She Thinks Big. But second is fear of failure. Okay. So that could also be like under fear of the unknown, but I want you to think of it as its own thing, fear of failure, because really it's just another kind of confidence issue. Okay. But this one revolves around judgment. Okay. Or feelings, like bad feelings. So we have this fear that we're not going to be good enough. We have a fear of not being seen as good enough. Who cares if we are or we aren't, but we're not being seen as good enough. And then we have this fear of letting other people down. Okay. So all of those things are really failure-like things. Our brain is reading them as failure, but our brain really should be reading them as, I just need some more confidence. So I like to say this one can be solved by quieting the little voice in the back of your head that I call a frenemy voice and saying, hey, thank you so much for reminding me that I may not really know exactly what I'm doing. And thank you so much for reminding me that someone might think what I'm doing is either who am I to do it, or they may think, wow, look at you, like kind of make fun of you, all those things. So that's just really quieting the frenemy voice. And that's a big thing. So I work a lot with clients on confidence. And I always say, you wouldn't have gotten on this consult call if you didn't have some confidence. So you've got confidence, but we're going to talk about a different kind of confidence, which is saying, thanks so much for the warning back there in the back of my head. Will the real Andrea please stand up? Will the real Angela please stand up? She's going to do what she wants to do. So that's fear of failure. And the other piece, that fear of letting others down. There's this unwritten rule that we need to be there for our families and manage our home. And yes, I'm all in on being there for your family. So this woman this morning, if she's listening to this, she kept saying to me, yeah, but my kids come first. And I said, yeah, you know what? My kids come first too. And they're now 22 and 20, but they still come first. And I've been able to grow a very profitable and successful business. So why does it have to be one or the other? Right? What if your kids are like, Mom, go for it? Right? What if they're going to be fine? Whether they're in a carpool or you picking them up, you're not neglecting them for like forever and ever. Right? So this letting people down thing mostly revolves around our family, but that's also under fear of failure. That's the second category. Okay. Third category, fear of lack. So this revolves around not having enough of something, not having enough money, not having enough time. Those are really the two big ones, money and time. Resources in general. So I like to say our four most valuable resources are time, money, brain power, and relationships. So ironically, no one worries about having enough brain power, but that is really, if you could invest in your brain power, in your thinking and thinking about things different ways, you are going to have plenty of money. You're going to figure out how to make money. You're also going to have plenty of time because you're going to figure out, what do I need to be doing and what can I delegate? So that fear of lack
Mhm.
is really something that can 100% be managed
Mhm.
just by like working on our own mindset and thinking.
Mhm.
So fear of lack, fear of failure, and fear of the unknown. Those are the three big categories.
Yeah. So, do you have any tips for how we can begin to change that narrative?
Yeah, I do. Imagine that. I
I
totally do.
know.
I totally, you've come to the right place. So to really just to simplify it,
Mhm.
okay, like you really need to think big. You need to think bigger. So what does that really mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
So what that really means is the following. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Okay. You need to go become friends with your future you.
Mhm.
Okay? So, future you is a year from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now who has her act together, recognizes that there are like, yeah, we can be being scared is like a human reaction,
Mhm.
and you're willing to take some risks.
Mhm.
Future you is someone who is successful, who has done all the things, who wrote the book or grew the business or quit the corporate job
Mhm.
or carpooled to ballet instead of driving 24/7. So that's the future. You have to go talk to that future you and say, what would you do today? What should I do today? Because that future you, she knows. She knows.
Mhm.
The past you, which we love to talk about, past you, we love to tell all the stories of what's happened in the past. That's just a teacher, but it's not a fortune teller.
Mhm.
And present you, don't ask present you, because present you is tired and overwhelmed and probably a little stressed. So I wouldn't ask present you. Wouldn't ask. No, leave that out of the equation. You need to go to future you and
Mhm.
ask her what to do today, to how to move past this.
Mhm.
And that's really an element of thinking big. Thinking big also means, and I created an acronym around this, trust, TRUST. You need to consider all your thought options. What that's a thought option would be, what if this actually works? Like this could work
Mhm.
is a thought option that we don't really look at too often. Okay.
Mhm.
We look at the one, what if it doesn't work? All right. So consider your thought options. That's what the T stands for.
Mhm.
R is real problem. Chances are the real problem is just the fact that you don't want to feel a negative feeling.
Mm.
So if I go back to why I started this business and those women who are the outside world would think of being super successful, inside they were feeling a lot of anxiety, they were feeling frustration, and you don't want to feel those things. So you're like, maybe I should just jump ship.
Mhm.
Okay. So the real problem is really just a negative feeling. Definitely
Mhm.
with those three fears, 100%. That's what R stands for in trust. U stands for embrace the unknown. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. And that's okay. That's
Mhm.
okay. That's one of my favorite phrases. And that's okay.
Mhm.
S is secure support. Big thinkers, they secure support. They
Mhm.
find usually other humans to help them through some of these challenges, right?
Mhm.
They find other humans to help them increase their brain power or give them more thought options or show them what's possible.
Mhm.
So, securing support is not telling me that your husband is super supportive, because he probably is, but he's doing his version of support, which is 100% different than most other kinds of support, including mine, right? He's not
Yes.
going to necessarily point out what could be going wrong in a way that is constructive necessarily. And his job is not to do that. He's supposed to
Mhm.
like love you. So let's just let him
Mhm.
do that job. Like,
Mhm.
and do it else, do the other job.
Good points.
Good point. Let's let him do his job. So that's secure support. And then T does stand for take action. Sad part is here. We do have to do something, and we have to take what I call massive action
Mhm.
versus passive action.
Mhm.
Passive action is you could tell me you're doing things like you're reading books, you're
Mhm.
listening to podcasts, both of which I'm love, right? Obviously. You took a training on
Mhm.
YouTube. Okay.
Mhm.
Those are all awesome things, but it's really
Mhm.
passive action. They're like in the background. They're not super hard.
Mhm.
You got to do some hard things. A
Mhm.
little sign over there on my desk that says I can do hard things. So massive action is hard. Massive action is making an offer. Massive action is raising your prices. Massive action is deciding you're going to write a book and put yourself out there. Massive action is, here's another one that might get some of your listeners. Massive action is creating a business plan and putting it on paper and writing it down and looking at it more than once a year. That's massive action. And that's super hard to do by yourself, just so you know.
Mhm.
So a lot of
Mhm.
times you need to secure support in order to do that. At least I do. Every
Mhm.
time I sit down to do it, I'm like, this is probably a really good time to clean out my inbox because it's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah.
So that taking action, the last T in trust is taking action.
Mhm. I
That's how you
really
move past this.
Yeah, I really love I think you're the first person I've heard talk about different types of action.
Mm,
And I think that's a really good distinguisher because we can do lots of things to make ourselves busy and not really move the needle. I think
exactly.
that's an easy trap to fall into.
Yep. A lot of knowledge gathering, I call as like
Oh yeah.
passive action.
Right.
Even
If you're
Googling, that's passive action, right?
right.
Or even like I said to someone yesterday, she wanted to set up a meeting with someone. She's like, just let me know when, if you want to do this or when's a good time. And I said, what do you think is going to happen with that? She's, I'm not going to hear from her for another month. I said, yeah, why didn't you just say, hey, is next Tuesday at 10 good? Or how about Thursday at 11? Like someone's
Mhm.
going to pick a time. But that's massive action versus just waiting to see what happens.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, so I think that those are awesome points for somebody who is trying to overcome their fears and trying to rewrite that narrative in their head. But what about that person who is trying to create the vision that they want to pursue?
yes, this is hard. This is
Yes.
hard. So creating the vision or almost dreaming
Hmm.
bigger is super hard and it's a
Right.
skill.
Right.
It's a skill.
Hmm.
I like to guide people through creating the vision in two different ways. Number one is super guided in saying, okay, let's just create a fuzzy picture on the wall for 10 years from now.
Hmm.
It's like a Renaissance picture. It's not modern art with crisp, clear lines.
Hmm.
Let's make a fuzzy picture. What's it going to look like? It's easy to say, oh, my kids are going to be this old. And okay, great. Where are you living?
Hmm.
How much are you working? Do you still even own this business?
Hmm.
If you do, or what are you doing in it? What's your
Hmm.
role? Are you still doing everything? Or are you doing nothing? Maybe you've got a whole team. So we create this fuzzy picture vision for 10 years
Hmm.
from now. Then
Hmm.
we go to 3 years and then it gets
Hmm.
a little clearer. And I need some specifics. Okay.
Hmm.
So that's one way that I do it when I'm doing a business plan. I call it a vision to action plan. So we have
Mhm,
one page of this is all about vision. The second page is all about action. So we tie the vision to the actions. Another way, though, to do this is to dream. And dreaming, if you think about it, dreaming is nonsensical. Dreaming is, I have no clue how this is going to happen.
mhm,
Like, think about Martin Luther King. I have a dream. When he
mhm,
said all that, none of that was going on, right?
mhm,
Now today, I'm not saying we're 100% there, but we're a lot better, right? Some of that's coming true. So
mhm,
dreams also are euphoric and they're exciting and they should
mhm.
light you up. There should be like some igniting in there.
Right.
So I like to say if you can create some wild goals or wild dreams or a wild vision, W stands for being willing to suck at it.
Mhm,
Okay. I stands for ignite and impossible.
mhm,
L stands for let it be easy.
mhm,
All right. And then D stands for do it for fun.
mhm.
So if you can use that acronym to help fuel a dream, like what would be fun? What would be thrilling? What would be like letting it be easy, like just allowing yourself open to the fact that it could be easy. That's like another giving equal airtime kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, yeah.
Then you can start to dream. Pipe dreams, like people have
Mhm,
pipe dreams. But back in the 1800s, like people were smoking opium through pipes
mhm,
and they were hallucinating and probably having a great time. Those opium pipe dreams just shortened to pipe dreams. And that's what a pipe dream is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're capable of doing it. You just have to allow
Mm-hmm.
yourself the space, talk about
Mm-hmm.
space,
Mm-hmm.
and environment to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, definitely. It's so important to have that person that can help you see further than you
mhm.
can. And so
Yes.
it sounds like you have lots of ways that you do that for your clients. And if you want any mompreneur, aspiring or growing mompreneur listening to this podcast to take away a few ideas or an idea, what would that be?
I would say, okay, two things. Number one is being a mompreneur can be lonely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a podcast called Time to Level Up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most recent ones is about loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be lonely or it will
Mm-hmm.
be lonely if it's not.
Yeah.
And you need to secure that support.
Yeah.
And
Community.
again, it's probably not your husband. It is probably not your sister. It's got to be someone that's outside the peanut butter jar. I like to say,
Mhm.
like, you're stuck in your own peanut butter jar and you can't, like, it's really jiffy. It's like super thick. You can't get out and you
Yeah.
can't really see what's going on around you and what the options are.
Mhm.
So you need someone to read the label. You need someone to
Right.
see what else is on the shelf.
No, yes.
So you've
Yeah.
got to secure
Great
support.
analogy.
Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, thinking big is the key, my friends.
Yeah.
Like you are just going to stay where you are, whatever that is. And it might not be
Mhm.
bad, but
Mhm.
if you want something to change, you've got to think bigger. That would be the
Mhm.
second thing. And then the third thing is one of my favorite sayings is being an entrepreneur is really a journey in personal development disguised as an entrepreneurial adventure. Okay. So your
Yes.
business is only going to grow as fast as you grow as a human and
Mhm.
your thinking, as fast as you evolve, as fast as you expose yourself to new ideas where the thought options come in. So any things that you can do to better yourself are
Mhm.
going to pay off in the end. And that's what's going to propel you forward.
100% back that up. That's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it is definitely a journey that will take you. You can't hide from the skeletons, and all.
You cannot
They
hide from the
will
sky.
show themselves for
They
sure.
will. They totally
Yeah.
will. Yeah.
Where can listeners find Think Big and connect with you to learn more about you, what you do, and all the good stuff?
Yeah, you can go to my website and you can spell out my whole last name, but I'm just going to tell you to go to Andrea's with an S, links with an S.com. And there you're going to find a link to the website. You're also going to find a link to all my social media. I usually hang out more on Instagram and I'm trying to hang out more on LinkedIn. I don't know, it's rough. I would highly encourage you, since you're listening to this podcast, you must like podcasts. So go download Time to Level Up. That is my podcast. And you can head over to Amazon or actually any bookstore and find She Thinks Big. But if you go to the website and you click there, you're also going to get like a personalized book plate and
Oh,
some other
nice.
goodies.
Nice.
So,
I love
yeah,
it. Thank
yeah,
you so much for sharing that. We're recording this in January, but I think entrepreneurs need to be at the point where we're always constantly reevaluating where we're at and where we want to go. And
that's a really good tip there. You have to keep evaluating it. If
yeah,
you made some great plan for 2024, we got to look at it already again because it might have
right,
changed. And
right.
that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, don't feel like you're stuck in whatever plan you made or what you thought you should do or where you would be.
Yep.
The beauty of being an entrepreneur is that we can change it all.
We can. It's like you've got options.
Right? All
You
the
got options.
time.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrea, so much for being on the podcast. And I will leave links to everything you mentioned in your podcast down below for sure.
Thanks for having me, Angela.
Thank you, Andrea.